Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this Heritage Day special. We are coming from a masjid that represents so much in terms of Muslims in South Africa, a masjid that represents the pride of Islam within South Africa, and a place which was the birthplace of our beautiful deen in South Africa. I'm talking of none other than the Auwal Masjid here in Bo-Kaap, Cape Town, South Africa. Today our Heritage Day special is going to discuss the history of Islam, why the word slaves needs to be used in a term that does not degenerate the Muslims who sacrifice so much here for the religion of Islam, for bringing the first batch of the people who would bring this deen to this beautiful land. Joining me next door, I'd like to welcome a man. We had him last year, but I'm happy that we've made the trip to Cape Town to have a face-to-face with him, just to talk about the history and so much more when it comes to this. It's none other than Dr. Mogamat Fadiel Arnold. He's an author of over 30 books and a man that when it comes to the history of Islam within South Africa, and especially this place, Bo-Kaap, he has knowledge that probably a lot of others may not come close to him. Dr. Arnold, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran so much for making the time for us, Dr. Arnold, and inviting us to the masjid. I know it's very rare that people come, obviously, outside of Salah times or madrasa. So it's a great honor for us to be here. Dr. Arnold, let's speak, of course, of Auwal Masjid itself. There's certain maybe myths, and it's myths that have been created by the colonial powers that maybe a lot of the public does not understand. Let's break it down so that the truth about our deen is being portrayed in the best light possible.
Shukran to you for asking me, for inviting me. I think it's important what you are saying. We need to repackage this concept that the Bo-Kaap Muslims are descendants of slaves, because the history in itself does not present it. But people want to give this kind of, especially people who are anti-Islam, because they want to give the impression that Muslims were oppressed and were basically subdued, which is not something that they could do.
Sure.
Because that's why they sent Tuanguru here, because they couldn't subdue the Muslims there. And they sent Sheikh Yusuf here because they couldn't subdue the Muslims here. So when they arrived here, they didn't want to subdue any Muslims here because it would create an uprising again. So they, in actual fact, the request for the first Muslims to come and settle as free blacks or as free citizens was made by Jan van Riebeeck himself. So Jan van Riebeeck, in actual fact, he came here with about 80 men. He was, in actual fact, a criminal because he used the name of the Dutch East India Company for his personal gain, and he was on a 10-year sentence, either jail or come and start the refreshment station. So he came with 80 men, settled here, but they used tents, obviously, to settle. And then the wind was so powerful, it killed like 19 of his men. And so he then wrote to the government to send him the Mardekas, who are the Indonesian people that they knew from Indonesia that were uprighteous Muslims, creative people, people that are prepared to defend, justice, etc., to come and assist him to build the Bo-Kaap itself, or the houses for them.
Yes.
On the agreement that they will have freedom of faith, they will be given property, they will be allowed to be free. That's why they call them free blacks.
Yeah, and that's what I want to know, because the word slave is used so loosely, especially when it comes to the colonial era. So how mindful should people be about just saying, well, they were slaves? Meanwhile, it's probably not as black and white as it may seem.
No, the thing is this, they couldn't break the spirit. You will realize in the history that the National Party, the Boers themselves, never coined that particular feature of the Cape Muslims.
Sure.
It's only after the National Party was no more in power and the DA took over here under the new apartheid, they started pushing that particular narrative for tourism purposes.
Sure.
You know, so they mix up everything in order to make it exciting, you know, and make it like a story. But it's not factual. And that's when people are not easily accepting that fact that the Bo-Kaap Muslims were not descendants. They came as free people to build the Cape. And they were granted that freedom to believe and to practice their faith. But they couldn't set up a mosque yet. But, so they salad in Payne Street, there was a Salah Khana.
Right.
But they were not allowed to do propagate Islam. And anybody who, so before they arrived in 1658, the governor here, the Dutch governor, basically promulgated a law which they used in India and those places, that Muslims' faith must not be disturbed. They are free.
Okay, so at the time we would say that there was a sense of respecting.
Absolutely, because they didn't want to disturb the Muslims here, because the Muslims here needed the Muslims to build, and there were only a few settlers.
But that adds to the thing, doesn't it, Dr. Arnold, that if they were slaves, they would have been treated with inhumane conditions.
Yeah, and
I mean, logic would dictate that to be the case.
And there were certain rules about slavery, you know, that they had created. For instance, they would strip the slave from all his identity. No name, just numbers, and the slave owner at the top.
All right.
They couldn't practice their own faith. They were not allowed to marry. They couldn't take anyone to court. They couldn't have their own religion. And so in that particular, and they couldn't own property. Right. So those features were never part of the Muslims that arrived here. They had their own surnames, their own names, they married, they had their religion, their own property. So all of that is contrary to the slave kind of narrative, you see. But it's easy for people to try and do that, to break the spirit of the Muslims, to say, you were a slave before, you know what I'm saying? But it was done deliberately by the British and those particular, because again, from the British point of view, the first British that were dropped onto the colony's shores were criminals. Yes. And they were set up here to start to work for the Queen. And they were given materials, etc. And they were married amongst themselves as criminals by the authorities. So they were serfs. And they changed their names and their particular history in order to create a kind of, as if they are like, you know, really came here to settle. But nobody wanted to settle here because they didn't know the place. Yeah. It was new, you know. That's why it was a punishment for Auwal Masjid to send them to the Cape.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's interesting you talk about the British who were criminals. It's a very similar scenario when they went to obviously North America and
they dropped
Plymouth Rock.
They dropped the people from the jails. They dropped them at different colonies to start the Muslim a white community there. Yeah. And you've got it, and you can see it on the life of incredible story of Mary Bryant, which is a documentary on her life, and she was on one of the ships heading for Cape Town. So if you look at that, then you can see whoever writes history is the one who's in control. He writes the history.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I mean, we're going to touch on that later on. How important is it for us, for Muslims, to obviously, write their own history? And of course, now that we're in an age now where that can allow to happen, it's going to be even more important. Dr. Arnold, when we speak of Bo-Kaap, I mean, the history of Muslims in Cape Town, Bo-Kaap is the first name that comes to mind as a resident of Bo-Kaap. Maybe give an idea of not just the history of this establishment or place itself, but how, of course, Islam became so strong and such a driving force.
Right. Yeah. As you know, they came here to actually work for the Dutch. Yeah, right. And they were trained. They were also artisans, but they were trained to do housing like the Dutch. Right. So you got the Dutch houses, you got the British houses, you got the Portuguese houses. So this Bo-Kaap itself is like a central feature for many particular Eurocentric architecture, and as well Arab architecture is also in the Bo-Kaap. So if you come to Bo-Kaap, you actually see a variant of architectural designs. And but when they came here, they were given property, etc., and land to assist with the building of Cape. But what they did was, because they knew they had to keep their Muslim identity, they started Haddats every Thursday night.
Yeah.
Because
Which is a
the
culture
world,
that's
the,
maintained
no,
till
the
today,
world
yeah.
will come to an end on a Friday.
Yes.
So therefore, it's important to have zikr
Sure.
after Maghrib.
Sure.
So they would keep that Hadat going, you know, and that zikr going. But that zikr also provided an economic infrastructure because they would give food and they would give cakes and fruit to the people that come. And so it became a sustainable feature that the Muslims sustained themselves. So you had a kind of a self-sustaining community based on tawakkal Allah. If you look at the zikrs that they make of the Hadat, it's beautiful, kind of appealing to Allah, asking for protection, etc. You know, and this created the first spirituality in Cape Town.
Yes.
The Muslims brought spirituality in Cape Town because the colonists were not interested in faith.
Yes, yes.
And so the colonists themselves knew that they must protect the Muslims because it brought another dimension to their life.
Yeah.
And so you have in this South Africa, you have 2% of Muslims being respected by 98% of the population. So
which is rare to see
it's
in any other country.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
And when I was on Hajj, a Malaysian asked me how many Muslims are there in Cape Town, in South Africa. So I said 2%. He said to me, no, you look like 98%. And then he was quiet. We're sitting in the haram.
Yeah, sure,
so he said to me, do you know why you look such a lot? The malaikas are with you.
Yeah.
And then my goodness, this is true. Because with the malaikas being with us, every particular group of people protected us under Allah's command.
Sure.
So the Dutch protected us, the British protected us, you know, the apartheid government protected the Muslims. The ANC protected the Muslims. And so this is like, not that they protect us, Allah commands them to look after the Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, out of choice, they would have, I mean, if it came down to it, they would have.
But the reason why
they would have oppressed us further.
But the reason why they had to do it was because we provided the tailoring and the dressmaking and the food and the laundry, etc., you know, and looked after the children. So they needed us to support their culture.
And I mean, that's important, isn't it?
We built their houses, so they didn't want to mess around with the Muslims. They want to keep them happy so that they can provide them what they need.
But that's an important thing, isn't it, Dr. Arnold, is that the Muslims were not just from a spiritual perspective of a higher class, but there was also the ability for them to be businessmen, or business people, I beg your pardon, craftsmen in their specific fields.
You see, they took their craftsmanship as a deen, you see.
Yes.
They took, this is work.
Yes.
Allah says in the Quran that He created death and life to test whether the best in work.
Sure.
So they took their work as an ibadah. And so they created their own guild system, you know, and they refused when this masjid had 700 children as a public school, put it that way.
Sure.
There were no other public schools. People, the authorities, they used to have, you know, private tutors.
Yes.
So there are people who became Muslim because the Muslims had these madrasas, 80 madrasas in the houses, 700 children. And then Caledon said, people are becoming Muslim because the slave quarters, some of the black slaves became Muslim.
Yes.
And so we need to start our own schools. So they started Christian schools. Yeah. You know, like St. Paul's and St. Mark's, etc.
Yes, right.
And it was funded by the British. But what they did was they said Muslims cannot go to school beyond grade 4.
Okay.
If they want to go higher to grade 5, they must become Christian. That's in the
so that already was a blockage.
That was a blockage of Muslim.
So how did that break then?
So now the
Dr.
Muslim,
Arnold,
what the beautiful thing, the Muslims said, okay, so keep your education, we don't need it.
Okay.
We'll teach our children craft.
Okay.
To the best of our ability, and Allah will give us a rizq.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah. And I mean that for me.
Tawakkal Allah. And they did it.
But it would have been to the detriment of these British schools because, I mean, if you would have had all the Muslims that were there, it would have really assisted in not just the pass rate of that very same school, but in terms of knowledge.
Basically, what they lost out is the craftsmanship of the Muslims. They actually deprived themselves from the skills, and the Muslims maintained the skills.
Yes.
So they always needed the Muslims to come and work for them.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what it is.
So in actual fact, it was a brilliant move because our Muslims were not trapped in an unemployment feature because schools is actually an unemployment hub.
Right.
It creates unemployment. It's not there to educate people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's there to keep you off the market.
Yeah.
But the Muslims didn't do that. They said, no, we'll teach our own children.
How important was that independence, especially at a time where colonialism was quite high?
It was beautiful.
Dr. Arnold, because I'm thinking, the colonial powers would not want this independence. What they would want is for you to be subservient towards them.
Yes.
But there's a different sort of take on this, because to take away the subservience, surely cooperation would have been a better tool. But it seems as if the colonial powers were not interested in that.
No. The schools are designed to make you dependent.
Yes. Okay.
And the Muslims saw that.
Yeah.
The ulama, the Muslims saw that.
Right.
They say, no, we will not go to your schools.
Yeah.
We can't read and write, but we become craftsmen
Sure.
that are unique. And
Yes.
they couldn't handle it.
Yes.
So that was the beautiful part that the Muslims have done.
Alhamdulillah.
Because now they said, and they used to teach each other.
Sure.
When they go to weddings, they make notes and say, okay, if you
Yes.
have that problem, you do this. They
Yes.
shared ideas. And that became a powerful feature. So the Muslim, up till today, the non-Muslims are still using the Muslim craftsmanship.
Yeah. Well, after the break, we're going to be continuing this conversation. We're going to be touching a lot more on the Auwal Masjid and how this specific center became a gathering of the Muslim community here in Bo-Kaap. And of course, this will set the trend for the thousands of masjids that are built across South Africa. Do stay tuned. I'll have more for you after this break. Welcome back to this Heritage Day special. We are coming to you from the historic Auwal Masjid here in Bo-Kaap. And of course, my guest, a renowned author, Dr. Mogamat Fadiel Arnold. Again, Dr. Arnold, shukran so much for making the time for us. Dr. Arnold, when you see outside of the Auwal Masjid, of course, it has this plaque where it makes reference to slaves. Demyth it right now, because it really is an insult to the intellectual minds that said, this is an opportunity for us to open a place of da'wah, a place of salah, and an establishment of the Qibla here in Bo-Kaap, Cape Town.
Well, you must remember that Tuan Guru, may Allah grant the Jannah, inshallah, he was on a life sentence by the Dutch.
Yes.
But when the British took over in 1794, which is the first British occupation, they were obliged by the treaty that they have with the Ottoman Empire to free and protect the Muslims.
Right.
So they released him from the jail.
All right.
And then he started this particular madrasa in 1794.
Sure.
So you can immediately see the Muslims were not slaves because they were allowed to have a public place and educate their children, which was against the law to educate your slaves.
Slaves, yeah.
And your slave masters were not allowed to educate the slaves. But one of the interesting things is that the slave masters wanted the slaves not to drink wine. So they would send them to Bo-Kaap. They would send them to Bo-Kaap
Right, okay.
to become Muslim, not knowing that when they become Muslim, they were not allowed to marry in their churches.
Right.
The imams married them.
Okay.
And that allowed them to have a kind of a decent marriage and children. Because the Dutch refused, the slave owners refused them to have marital relationships. They could sleep together, but they can't marry in their churches. So when they came here...
So infidelity was actually promoted.
Because they wanted to sell their children.
Yes,
but now when they came to Bo-Kaap, become Muslim, they would marry and then it would be halal. They have their children.
Children, yeah, exactly.
And some of these African Muslims that became Muslims would go back, and this is in the history of Lady Barnard.
Right.
If they went back and they were Muslim, and the slave owner was unfair, they would kill him as a jihad.
Oh, so you were allowed to kill?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
The slave would kill the master.
So that's what I'm saying. So the slave could kill the master on the basis of jihad itself.
No, that was the feeling of the deen.
Yes.
If he's oppressing
were there
people,
occasions of that happened?
There were occasions because in the book of Barnard they call it run amok.
Okay.
Because they would then kill, and so they didn't want Muslims as slaves because Muslims are dangerous. So the concept of Muslims being slaves in the Cape doesn't make sense because it was too dangerous for them to have slaves as Muslims because those who did become Muslim of the Africans killed them masters.
Yeah.
So they didn't want any Muslims to be slaves.
Yeah.
One of the features that shows you how much respect there was for the Muslims was when Sheikh Yusuf arrived with his people. His followers came with him.
And what year was that again, Dr. Arnold? For the remembrance
Sheikh Yusuf as exiled here to the Cape.
Right, okay.
Simon van der Stel went to welcome him on the shore.
Okay.
This is supposed to be a political prisoner.
being
was
welcomed
being
from
welcomed by the
senior
government
official.
to come in, and he brought his own people with him.
Right.
These people came with him in order to learn by him. Now, no family is going to come with your family if there's slavery here.
No, of course,
You know, so this freedom that the Muslims had in the Cape and the Auwal Masjid being established allowed many of the ulama to travel here and to settle here from different parts of the world. So we have this heritage of an enormous amount of dhikrs and Islamic literature, etc.
Yes.
And mushafs, etc. that are available here, which is a proof of the level of our education Islamically.
Yes.
And the freedom that the Muslims had to actually operate here under the deen. And now people don't like the idea that, do you know there's a masjid at the bottom, which is called, it was the bottom Kapinisi, there's a masjid?
Yes, I know of that.
Al-Jamia Masjid, I think. That masjid was called Queen Elizabeth Masjid.
Okay, so how did the name Queen Elizabeth come?
Because the Muslims were asked to defend the coastline. Okay. And they say, we'll do that on condition that you give us a place to build a masjid.
Okay.
So they gave,
so there were certain concessions that were made.
So they gave the money. So the Queen gave the money to the masjid.
Right.
So they called it the Queen Victoria Masjid.
Okay, right.
But the Muslims' approach was this: if you give us freedom of our faith, we'll defend the country.
Right.
Because you are giving us freedom of faith. It's not that we're supporting the colonialists. You're giving us the freedom of faith, we'll actually protect the country.
And that, of course, would have been seen as an act of jihad.
You know, because they know if you assist each other, you know, you have to assist each other. I mean, there were people of the book that assisted in the battles of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People, you know, that were genuine believers and followers of Nabi Isa alayhi salam and Nabi Musa alayhi salam. They also fought in the jihad. Sure. But I mean, there were not a lot, but I mean, the Muslims are. So you have that kind of. But if you look at it from a modern perspective, we say, no, but you're supporting the. No, they didn't. They say only on condition you give us that freedom. You gave us that freedom, therefore we will support you.
Dr. Arnold, I want to talk of Van de Kaap, the surname Van de Kaap, because everyone knows Sarki Van de Kaap. You were telling me off air while we were walking around the masjid that Van de Kaap was just a lazy use of the word.
No, it's like to identify.
From the Kaap, right.
It's identify the people who were not born in Netherlands.
Okay.
Because
so from the Cape would have been the actual.
There's the plaque in the front that I pointed out. Was the fact that it says free black slave. No, that doesn't make sense.
Right,
free black is a free black. It should be if he was a slave, it would be freed black slave.
Exactly.
But it isn't. It's free black. He was a free black, but now they added the concept of slave to it, which is not true.
Would you say that's to degenerate?
To make a kind of a psychological trap.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Right.
But the fact of the matter, because his name was there, there's already proof that he wasn't a slave, because all the names of the slaves was taken away.
Right.
They completely broke the slaves from any connection in America, in all the countries.
Right.
And so if you look at the names of the Muslims in the Bo-Kaap, it's like Arif Din, Salam Din, are you with me? All the Deen aspects.
Sure.
And so if you look at the non-Muslims that were slaves, right, and they were taken, identity were taken away. They were given names like January, February, March, and they were like the original people of the Khoi people.
Okay, yes.
They became more or less the administrators of government.
Right.
Muslims were never there. They were basically the craftsmen. Are you with me?
Yes, right.
So the whole education department was full of the actual original Khoi people.
Khoi people,
We had the surnames of, you know. And then there was, unfortunately, there was the British. You also had, there was like 50% of Indian slaves.
Yes.
And in order to identify Indian slaves, they gave them surnames, which like really confusing surnames. That is to identify that these Indians are actually descendants of slaves.
Right.
Because, you know, those names just doesn't make sense. But that is specifically done with that purpose that the British did.
So these surnames were not by coincidence. These were done in order to make sure
that you identify them. These are slaves.
Right.
And so that's not the case of the Bo-Kaap Muslims.
Yes.
Because they still have the same Islam Deans, and you know.
Yes.
And they also have the surname. And people that became Muslim, like the Costa, which is, they still have their name.
Sure.
And what happened was in the Auwal Masjid, any British or Dutch that became Muslim, they started teaching in this masjid. So they taught accounting and business in this masjid. So it wasn't just Islamic
so
stuff.
the different others, not the non-Islamic
It
subjects,
was
were being
so
taught.
called.
Yeah.
It was so called like it was all other.
So there was a
subjects were taught.
secular
There was
aspect to it. Yeah.
Yeah, what we call today secular. you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, they taught Quran
Yeah.
because the Quran tells you to learn science and to learn
Yes,
math.
exactly.
And to learn, it's just we started contextualizing as secular, as separate from Quran.
And here's the thing. So obviously Sarki van der Kaap would have been quite an influential figure. How does her history and this masjid and Bo-Kaap really tie into it?
What's interesting, I missed the point there, but I wanted to go on there because that was your question.
Yeah.
Is that Trish van der Kaap was a Dutch woman that became Muslim, and she married, the gentleman from Bengal, and because he was known as a free man, and she had this property.
Yeah.
So Sarki van der Kaap owned it from her, and then they gave it as a masjid.
Sure.
But what is interesting is the Imam Hassan, who was one of the imams that was direct descendants. He and his children were all blue-eyed and white.
I mean, no one would have thought that would have been actually the case.
And we were friends because my father was Bilal, the muazzin of this masjid.
Yes.
So we were very good connected with the family.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, blue-eyed blonde. So,
And I mean, it's like for example, your surname, Dr. Arnold.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, you'd only find these surnames, and this is what, of course, makes South Africa unique, but also why it's important to have this conversation. So, for example, how would Malay people, Malay citizens of the country or colored citizens of the country have English surnames or Afrikaans surnames? So it's important to get that.
My family is interesting because Arnold is actually a Chinese. Our forefather is a Chinese that arrived here with the surname Arnold.
But that would have been.
But the reason for that is the British at that time said if you don't take a British surname, you must go back to your country.
Okay.
So they forced some people that settled in Britain to take British surnames. And our forefather took Arnold as a British surname, but arrived here as a Chinese.
Okay, so you got obviously.
So I've got it from that side,
East Asian blood,
but not really British.
Right.
But Chinese basically.
Okay.
And
of course, since you are wearing the Chinese.
No, this was a business.
It
was a business.
No.
Business conference I attended.
Yes. But I mean, that's the interesting aspect of this, is because it ties up to the heritage of South Africans, how certain Muslim citizens of our country would have these surnames, because Arnold is probably as English of a surname you'll ever get.
And then my uncle married a white woman, and his children also look like, blue eyes and blonde hair.
Right.
And I think the beauty of Cape Town is the spirituality.
Yes.
The constant dhikr that was made by our forefathers in the masjids, in the homes, was the powerful feature in the Cape.
All right.
Which even the Pope, when he arrived in the Cape Town airport, he made sujood. He never ever did that.
Which Pope was this now again?
John Paul or whatever. I don't know.
But regardless of who it was.
It was a few years ago. He came and he made sujood onto the ground of the airport in Cape Town. And they were amazed. He's never done it ever. So there's this kind of a spirituality here which is existent.
Yeah.
And I've met people that can see the other world. They can see some of the earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Which is sometimes
So this is not a game. Yeah. It's not a kind of just a heritage kind of thing for separation.
Yes.
It's a kind of a heritage of quality of spirituality.
Yes.
That's why Muslims there are many whites that are staying in Bo-Kaap. Do you know why? Because they love the adhan.
And
they come for the adhan. They come because they want to settle. It's a safe place. They love the Muslim culture. They love listening to the adhan. So I went to one of them and I said to them, you must become Muslim because Allah already invited you. Don't move away.
Yeah. Dr. Arnold, before we go to the break, behind us, of course, is a copy of a surah of the Quran.
Quran.
This is, of course, written by
students.
The students of Tuan Guru.
Yes.
How important is it to maintain these important writings,
this
important moment in history? Because without it, the guidance that we would have seen, especially within the historical context of South African Muslims, moves away.
The thing is this: we have to honor the people that laid the foundations for us, and this is part of Allah's rahmah.
Yeah.
You know, you make dua for people by using what they are giving.
Yeah.
And because there were no photocopies, Tuan Guru taught his students to rewrite the Quran.
But I want you to tell the listeners that it was no photocopying.
No photocopy.
It's the dedication, the patience, the perseverance
and
to
it's
make sure.
perfectly written, you know, slowly.
Yeah.
And you have to dip the feather in the ink, you know, and you can only write 3 letters at a time.
Yes.
But they completed many copies of the Quran so that people can use the Quran.
Yeah.
And this is one of the copies found
Yes, sure.
in the minaret,
Yes.
the old minaret before they did the renovations. They found that one day. It's not the one of Tuan Guru himself.
Yes. But I mean, his students would have been with him.
Yeah,
I looked at it, and what I liked about it is that there is I'm not going to use the word artwork. I'm going to use dedication,
absolutely.
perseverance.
It's an ibadah.
Exactly.
It's an ibadah.
Just to make sure that it is done in the way that is pleasing in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, and you must make sure that every harf is correct, you know, and every tashkil is correct, etc. And that patience, that sabr, etc., and that knowing that my work, inshallah, somebody will recite it and look at it and I will get the barakah in the qabr. That's the spirit that keeps Cape Town going. Cape Town is being held by the spirituality of Muslims.
Yeah.
Even the whole of South Africa is being kept by the spirituality of the Muslims.
I agree.
And the non-Muslims, for us, all the Christians and the Jews and other people that are truly God-fearing, they have kept we have kept this particular place a peaceful transition. If it wasn't for the spirituality, there would have been a war here.
Exactly.
So South African legacy of a transitional peace was because of the spirituality, of the fear of God.
After the break, we're going to wrap up the conversation with Dr. Arnold. We're going to be talking about how this beautiful community of Bo-Kaap, and of course it's spread across many places amongst the country where we have Muslims from all different ethnic backgrounds, but the importance, Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. And that's how we will wrap up this Heritage Day discussion too. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this Heritage Day discussion that I'm having with Dr. Mogamat Fadiel Arnold here from the historic Auwal Masjid. Dr. Arnold, we don't have much time, so let's break it down. The community of Bo-Kaap, because I know it's a mixture. You're mentioning there are white citizens that are here also, obviously a lot of Malay citizens, Indian citizens. I personally know of many Indian families in Bo-Kaap. How are they able to come together to maintain the spirituality and the deen of Islam?
One of the beautiful things is that because the Muslims are so wonderful craftsmen, and because they had this ability to build, and because it was a free country for Muslims to practice, Muslim business people came to settle here.
Sure.
And that Muslim business people came to settle here, provided the finance, and the Muslims provided the labor to produce the masajid and the madrasas and build it. And then they had the culture of saying to the children, look, we're going to build during weekends. You don't get paid for anything because it's investment for the akhirah. So they built like 9 masajids in the 1800s.
Yes.
On one corner, you know. Yeah. And it's just brilliant because they did it fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah. And the Indians provided the finance. And the Muslims, the Malays, they call them Malays, okay?
Yeah.
Which we call it Afrikaners. They provided the craftsmanship. And so they created that kind of committees that would actually secure the basic heritage of South African identity. And they do the same thing now at the moment. It is the craftsmen coming, and then the Indians provide the business finance, and then the foreigners become the imams. Yes. The foreigners are then used to do the imams and keep the place clean, etc. And in the same way, then these foreigners become the imams sometimes, or you will be loved. So it's like, this is like Islam in action. And I must quote you the ayah in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala says, min ayatihi, you know, that He's created and khalaqakum min, Allah said, created us from clay, and then we became like nations and tribes. And Allah says, the fact that we are different colors and different languages is actually a miracle of Allah. For people who are intellectual, who are really thinkers. they're not prejudiced. People that are prejudiced are not intelligent.
Of course.
So Allah says, intelligent people see the different colors and languages and cultures as a miracle of Allah.
Sure.
That we can communicate,
And I think that's what makes South Africa such a beautiful
place.
It's because we are able to have this integration. I'm not saying that there's perfection in it. There are differences, but when it comes to Islam, when it comes to the establishment of the Qibla, I mean, everyone gets together, and Bo-Kaap is a classic example because you'll see, there's a story that you want to share with regards to this, Dr. Arnold.
The Muslims of Cape Town are very powerful people.
Yes,
and
I can't disagree there.
Because they come from they are descendants of the political prisoners, of the people that settle here. Are you with me? That stood their ground, etc.
So the steadfastness and perseverance.
So in the political situation, if you hear a gunshot, then people normally run away. Am I right?
Yes, yeah.
I was at the funeral of one of the people that died in the uprising.
Yes.
When the gunshot went off at the Maqbara,
yeah,
the Muslims didn't run away. They said Allah Akbar and they killed the policeman.
Yeah.
They just moved forward.
And you see that also.
So they haven't got that kind of fear,
yeah,
which is beautiful. And I think all the communities in South Africa, they know the Muslims are powerful in terms of their faith, in terms of their commitment.
Sure.
And they will not think about the difference when it comes to defending the deen.
Alhamdulillah.
And they stand together.
And I think you look at what's happening in Gaza, that in itself just shows you the...
And South Africa is beautiful. Because, it's the only country that took him to court.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can see there's many believers and Muslims are in key position in South African government. And if you look at the argumentation in the court,
against Israel,
it was a brilliant. And one of the top international lawyers said the South African argument by these Muslim and non-Muslim lawyers was of such a level that one day they should make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
So we have in South Africa a kind of a spirituality that is absolutely unique.
Yeah.
That cross borders and cross particular cultures. And I think the heritage is not to break us apart, but to really make us realize how much kind of beauty we have mixed amongst ourselves, that we can actually produce the best people.
Dr. Arnold, you want to touch on the word Malay, because I know we were talking about this. So Malay people are originally from Indonesia, Java.
Mostly,
just to break down that sort of a narrative or this word that has been thrown loosely, Malay. Again, this came from the National Party or the Dutch
National Party. The National Party couldn't say Muslim, so they said Malay for Muslims, you see. Because the Muslims, the Malay Muslims didn't want to tick Indian.
Right.
Or colored or black.
Yeah.
They would write Muslim.
Yeah.
So they added a feature called Malays.
and I mean, come on, it's not like Muslim.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's not like Muslim is a difficult word to speak. Okay, Dr. Arnold, we've got a few minutes to go. Just this discussion that we are having, of course.
But there's a lot of Malays that we are descendants. My great-grandmother, you can see she's Malay. Even myself.
Yeah.
When I go to Malaysia, they think I'm Malay because we've got that kind of... But then you get the Indonesians as well. You know? Yeah. So.
Okay, Dr. Arnold, I think we just a few minutes here. This lesson, this discussion that we have had, how important is it for the modern generation, the children, the youth, to understand why this history matters, why Muslim heritage matters, why our deen matters more, and why it trumps everything else, especially in a country like ours where we are allowed to practice our beautiful religion freely?
I think for this particular program will make young people realize that to be prejudiced against people of different nations and different cultures is not intelligent.
Sure.
To be intelligent is to be able to integrate everybody, because that's Allah's creation and He has made a miracle, and we will only get to know each other and ourselves. Because Allah says in the Quran that Allah has created us lita'arafu, that we get to know each other.
Yeah.
But in knowing each other, it's a reflective verb. You get to know yourself better. You say, lita'arafu is a reflective verb.
Yes.
So you get to know travel, get to know other people from other cultures, and then you get to know yourself better.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of taking heritage, not as a separate feature, but as an integrated science, as an integrated, feeling that we are together. So if we want to use an African outfit, And you know, the word Charlie that we used to use for a baby is
Yeah.
actually an African word
Like, yeah,
for a blanket.
Charlie, yeah.
Yeah, so we used to use the Charlie for the kids, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So there's a lot of African words and Indian
Yeah.
and Malaysian and Indonesian. So I call our language, which is specifically Bo-Kaap, I call it Bo-Kaaps because it's
Yeah.
unique, and I call it
Sure.
a creative language.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no standard language in the world.
Yes.
All languages are integrated.
Yeah.
There's no kind of, that's a political move. I was talking about standardized language. That is
Yes.
political. It's nothing
Yeah.
because languages are all integrated.
Integrated.
And Allah tells us that in the Quran.
Dr. Arnold, there's so much that we could have spoken about.
Alhamdulillah,
Unfortunately,
shukran to you.
we've got this time, but shukran for accommodating us. A special mention to Puta Fahmi for, of course, allowing
Yeah,
us to be in the masjid to film this. And really, absolute pleasure. There's so much. I hope we can come again next year. You know, maybe we can speak much more. There's so much. There's so much to speak.
I'm alive, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, we make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Yes,
grant you good
I'm
health,
now
barakah,
71
and
and
continue the good work that you are doing.
Inshallah.
Dr. Arnold. Dr. Arnold,
Shukran to you.
absolute pleasure hosting you.
Shukran
Shukran.
for having me.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Walaikum
rahmatullahi wa
salam. Shukran for
barakatuh.
having me. Alhamdulillah.
That is Dr. Mogamat Fadiel Arnold, renowned author. Read his books, understand the history, sometimes the history that probably went missing, sometimes the history that's probably not written in the way that you thought it would have been. Go read the books because it's important for you to know these facts. I've learned a lot, so much more with regards to this. From myself, Ras Patel, I'd like to thank Sohail Barnes for being behind the camera and my producer Fayaz Faracha for making this possible, and of course our video editor Mohammed Bakar. From myself, Ras Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg and in Cape Town, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.